Have you ever felt her suddenly grow distant? The texts that take hours to arrive, the cold shoulder when you enter the room, the subtle withdrawal of affection that leaves you scrambling, wondering what you did wrong. You're not imagining things. You're being tested. What if I told you that right now? In relationships across the world, millions of men are failing a test they don't even know they're taking. A silent, invisible evaluation that's determining whether they'll be respected or manipulated, desired or discarded. Today, you'll finally understand the most sophisticated weapon in the female psychological arsenal, the silent test, a strategy so powerful that the great Machiavelli himself would recognize it as the perfect execution of power without force. You've felt this before. The sudden emotional withdrawal, the inexplicable coldness, the absence of her usual warmth. And like most men, you probably responded by trying harder, by chasing, by seeking approval, unknowingly transferring all your power directly into her hands. This ends now. In the next few minutes, you'll decode this silent female strategy that has controlled men for centuries. You'll learn to recognize when you're being tested, why it's happening, and exactly how to respond in a way that doesn't just pass her test, but reverses the entire power dynamic in your favor. The pain of not understanding this pattern is devastating. Men everywhere are being emotionally manipulated, their self-worth diminished, their confidence undermined, all through a strategy so subtle they never see it coming. But the solution lies in awareness, in understanding the game being played. By the end of this video, you'll possess a Machiavellian insight into female psychology that few men ever grasp, and you'll never be emotionally ambushed again. The silent test begins almost imperceptibly. She doesn't announce it. She doesn't declare war. She simply withdraws. Perhaps you've noticed her responses becoming shorter, her enthusiasm diminishing, the compliments that once flowed freely now completely absent. Her gaze, once warm, now clinical and detached. These aren't random mood changes. They're calculated tactical maneuvers. For the average man, this registers as simple disinterest or a bad mood. But through the Machiavellian lens, you can now recognize it for what it truly is. A strategic assessment of your emotional stability, your sense of self-worth, and your ability to maintain leadership under pressure. Why is this tactic so devastatingly effective? Because it targets the male ego with surgical precision. The female instinct has evolved to understand that by removing emotional warmth, the very thing men seek from women, she creates an artificial scarcity that reveals your true character. Think about what happens in this vacuum she's created. Most men immediately scramble to fill it. They send more messages. They ask what's wrong. They offer gifts, compliments, attention, anything to restore the previous emotional temperature. And in doing so, they fail the test spectacularly. The prince should be both feared and loved, but as it is difficult for the two to go together, it is much safer to be feared than loved. Machiavelli understood that respect trumps affection when establishing power. When you desperately chase her approval, you communicate something fundamental. Her emotional validation determines your worth. You need to understand, women are not consciously plotting this strategy in most cases. This is deeply embedded evolutionary psychology. She needs to know whether you're emotionally self-sufficient or whether you'll collapse under pressure, whether you're a man who leads or a man who follows, whether your confidence comes from within or depends entirely on her approval. Have you ever noticed how quickly her interest returns when you focus on your purpose instead of her approval? When you continue building your life rather than begging for her attention? This isn't coincidence. It's the direct result of passing her silent test. The silent test appears in various forms throughout relationships. Early on, she might suddenly take hours to respond to messages, watching carefully to see if you send anxious follow-ups or remain unfazed. In established relationships, she might withdraw physical affection or emotional support before important events in your life, subtly assessing whether you maintain composure or crumble under pressure. Most dangerously, she'll often create problems out of nothing, becoming upset over trivial matters or perceived slights that leave you confused. This manufactured tension isn't about the surface issue. It's about observing your response to emotional turbulence. Do you become defensive? Do you apologize profusely for things you haven't done? Or do you maintain your center, refusing to be drawn into emotional chaos? Remember this crucial insight. When a woman withdraws emotionally, she's not necessarily less interested. She's conducting reconnaissance on your emotional foundation. Her withdrawal is a probe sent deep into your psyche, measuring the depths of your self-respect. The average man thinks, she's upset, I need to fix this. The Machiavellian thinker understands, she's testing, I need to remain unmoved. Women instinctively know that men who chase approval are ultimately unsatisfying. The biological mechanisms that govern attraction aren't concerned with fairness. They're concerned with detecting strength, particularly emotional strength. When you allow her mood to dictate yours, you fail this fundamental test of leadership. Think of it this way. Emotional desperation is to women what physical desperation is to men. Just as men are repelled by women who seem too eager or available, women are instinctively turned off by men who appear emotionally dependent or easily manipulated. But here's where it gets truly insidious. The silent test comes with no warning and no explanation. You're never told the rules of the game you're playing. And that's by design, because a test announced in advance measures preparation, not character. The decisive moment arrives when you, unsettled by her silence, begin to question yourself. This is the critical juncture where most men surrender their power entirely. Imagine this scenario. She's been distant for days. Your messages receive cold, one-word responses. When you're together, she's physically present, but emotionally absent. The warmth you've grown accustomed to has vanished without explanation. What happens next determines everything. The average man makes a catastrophic mistake. He begins to ask, what's wrong? He apologizes for offenses he hasn't committed. He increases his attention, his compliments, his gifts, desperately trying to restore the emotional equilibrium. Perhaps he even becomes emotional himself, revealing just how deeply her withdrawal has affected him. In this moment, the transfer of power is complete. The test has been failed spectacularly. By reacting this way, you've communicated volumes without saying a word. You've revealed that your emotional state is entirely dependent on her approval. You've shown that you lack the inner confidence to maintain your center when external validation is removed. Most devastatingly, you've demonstrated that you value her more than you value yourself. She now knows, with absolute certainty, that she can control your emotional state at will. That whenever she needs leverage in the relationship, all she needs to do is withdraw temporarily, and you'll concede whatever she wants to regain her approval. This is the moment when respect diminishes permanently. And make no mistake, without respect, genuine desire cannot exist. But there's another path. The path few men take. Imagine instead that when she withdraws, you notice it, but you don't chase. You continue focusing on your purpose, your goals, your mission. You remain warm, but unperturbed by her coldness. You don't ask what's wrong. Don't apologize for invisible offenses. Don't try to fix a problem she hasn't even articulated. You simply continue being the man you are, with or without her emotional validation. Something remarkable happens in this scenario. The dynamic shifts completely. She expected you to chase, and when you don't, she's forced to reevaluate her assessment of you. She realizes that your sense of self isn't dependent on her approval, that you possess an inner confidence she cannot easily shake, and counterintuitively, her attraction intensifies. The respect that was being tested is now firmly established. She discovers that you're not like other men who can be easily manipulated through emotional withdrawal. You've passed the test by refusing to acknowledge it was even being administered. This is the Machiavellian mastery of power dynamics. Not through force or argument or desperation, but through composed strength and emotional self-sufficiency. Think about the psychological inversion that occurs in this moment. She initiated the test from a position of power, the power to withhold approval. But when that withdrawal fails to impact you, she suddenly finds herself in an unexpected position, wondering why her withdrawal tactics aren't working, wondering why you aren't chasing like other men, wondering what makes you different. And in that wondering, her attraction deepens. What was meant to establish her power has inadvertently revealed yours. This is exactly what Machiavelli meant when he wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, because it belongs to everybody to see you, to few to come in touch with you. Everyone can see a man who's emotionally desperate, but few witness the rare man who maintains his composure under emotional pressure." The silent test also reveals something profound about female psychology that most men never grasp. Women don't want the power they're testing for. They want to discover that you're strong enough that they can't easily gain power over you. The test is designed not to find weakness they can exploit, but to confirm strength they can rely on. When a woman discovers she can easily manipulate you emotionally, she doesn't feel victorious, she feels disappointed. Her testing isn't malicious, it's instinctual. She's seeking evidence that you possess the emotional fortitude that makes a reliable partner and leader. When you fail her test by becoming emotionally reactive, you're not just losing a power game, you're failing to be the man she hoped you were. Remember, never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception. Women don't announce this test because its power lies in its subtlety. By recognizing it for what it is, you've already dismantled its effectiveness. The silent test reveals the uncomfortable truth that relationships aren't just emotional connections, they're also subtle power negotiations. The person who needs the other less always holds more influence. When you demonstrate that you don't need her approval to maintain your emotional stability, you establish yourself as a man of genuine value rather than a man seeking validation. And here's the final revelation that completes your understanding. Passing her silent test doesn't just change how she sees you, it transforms how you see yourself. When you no longer depend on female validation for your sense of worth, you experience a profound internal shift. You become truly self-sufficient, emotionally sovereign. You begin to operate from a place of genuine strength rather than reactive insecurity. And ironically, this internal transformation is precisely what makes you magnetically attractive to women. They sense a man who isn't seeking approval, but rather offering value from a place of abundance. This is the ultimate reversal. What began as her test becomes your triumph, not just in the relationship, but in your relationship with yourself. True strength is never shouted. It's maintained in the silence of reaction. The female silent test is a maneuver designed to identify emotional weaknesses, and the man who panics loses value instantly. Machiavelli's insight rings eternally true. The prince should be feared more than loved if he cannot be both. The lesson is clear. Never negotiate your emotional dignity in exchange for female approval. When she goes silent, respond with an even more powerful silence. Not the silence of spite or punishment, but the silence of unshakable self-worth. Your reaction defines your value and the dominance in the relationship. This doesn't mean becoming cold or emotionally unavailable. Rather, it means developing such a strong internal foundation that external approval, even from someone you deeply care about, doesn't determine your worth or emotional state. The next time you feel her withdrawing, recognize the test for what it is. Don't chase. Don't beg. Don't apologize for invisible offenses. Simply continue being the high-value man you are, focused on your purpose and confident in your worth. Remember this. She's not testing you because she wants you to fail. On a deep, often unconscious level, she's testing you because she wants to confirm that you're the strong, centered man she hopes you are. By maintaining your composure, you're not just passing her test. You're fulfilling her deepest desire for a man who cannot be easily manipulated or controlled. This is the paradox that Machiavelli would appreciate. By refusing to chase her approval, you become infinitely more worthy of it. So tell me, have you experienced this silent test in your own relationships? Did you recognize it happening, or did you only see the pattern in retrospect? Comment below with your experiences. If this video opened your eyes to dynamics you felt but couldn't articulate, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We're decoding the unspoken rules that govern human behavior, rules that others won't tell you. And don't forget to check our previous videos on female psychology and power dynamics. The more you understand these subtle strategies, the more effectively you can navigate them with confidence and self-respect. Remember, In the game of emotional power, the man who remains unmoved by manipulation is the man who ultimately wins, not through force, not through games, but through an unshakable sense of self-worth that no silent test can ever diminish.